was at some point very confused about who I was. And just like a lot of us, I think we all go down that road at some point in our lives, and sometimes we could even stall there for forever, who knows. And But it was only when I started to see the beauty in others and the power in others that I was able to unleash what was like somewhat buried within me, and I want to say diminished. I almost to say that like it was through portraiture that like one day I remember that day like it was yesterday. I was like sitting in a park in Amsterdam, and someone liked one of my photographs, and I know that I'm very tough on myself, so I do my photos and I just put it out there and people like it. But then I never actually go back and look at the photograph and be like, oh, that was actually good or not. I just move on to the next project. But that one day it was on a relaxed day talking about this whole confinement thing. I was not doing anything. It was on a Sunday. Time was slow, and so I get a like and someone saying like, oh, that photograph is just amazing, something like this. But then I think it was like the first time that I actually saw my work uh, uh, through the right lens, meaning that with appreciation of just like taking the time to actually look at it and to be like, oh wow. I looked at it in the same manner that I actually look at like others people work and appreciate it, and I'm like, that's beautiful. And it was not even like towards me, it was like towards the work. And which leads me to one thing is that like once we do something and we share it, from that moment it doesn't belong to us anymore. So it's not I was not appreciating me working on that photograph, I was just appreciating the photograph. And I hope that answers your question, but it's like that's why I like portraiture, because somehow it do you say sublimized? Is that a word in English? Like it uh, glorifies the
Yeah.
subject, but it sends that energy right back at you at the same time. And
So then it exists outside of yourself.
exactly.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And do you think in that moment, it's an interesting story because at once you're talking about being able to appreciate your work objectively as a beautiful thing and something that exists beyond you alone. It's something that's contributing something to the world of value. But at the same time, it sounds like in that moment, you maybe understood yourself as an artist in a
Yeah.
real way, like the switch flipped. I hear that a lot from artists that's a really powerful moment when they accept themselves as an artist. And it sounds like that happened through this sort of externalizing of the work.
Yeah, it's a tough leap. You nailed it. That's exactly it. And also beyond appreciating yourself as an artist, it's also like appreciating yourself as a human
Mm-hmm.
being. And uh, and even like when I use the word human, usually when we use that term, like when we talk about humanity and being human, it always trying to encapsulate just the positive aspect of like people, like being compassionate, empathy. But I want to say that like being human also has a lot of flaws to it. It's also like being weak, fragile. It's being to betray, to lie. It's all these things to me. uh, and you could look at an infant, they do those things. So it's not like something that infants lie all the time. Like they cry and then they stop to make sure that like the parents are looking, and if they don't, they move on. But it's like this whole theater. So it's like it's almost like what I'm trying to say is that like we wear a lot of masks, and it's an ability. At the same time, it could be a dangerous one. But once you understand that ability could be a servant and not a master,
Mm.
you, then I think that's when you somewhat elevate yourself to what you were saying, appreciating yourself as an artist. It's a beautiful thing. Took me a while. Took me almost 4 years.
It's a beautiful thing, and it's a thing I think that comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility. I think you know, there's many people who don't intellectually appreciate the importance of art. And that it is an absolutely essential and extremely important aspect of life. And I think to take on that role of artist is one that comes with a great amount of responsibility, because you're living that, you're owning that and believing that. And you know, it doesn't matter if you have a family who doesn't get it and is giving you grief about what your life career choices are, and on and on and on. I mean, I'm basing this on conversations I've had with countless artists. It's a very brave and I think can be terrifying endeavor, but one I'm just in absolute awe of. It's a wonderful thing.